Speak up, speak out. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the show where you can show your love, no doubt about it. Where self-love and self-worth are the topics of the day. Right here on the Just Blah Show, where love is the only way. And here are your hosts, Barb and Faye.
Hi, this is Faye.
This is Barb.
And welcome to Just Blah. Today we're going to continue our conversation on what's love. And today we're going to make a very concerted effort to cover clinging and running within the time frame that we allow ourselves.
Yeah, we actually thought we were going to get this done in one podcast, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think we're on number 4, so it turned into a mini series. But hey, it's cool. Anyway, we really want to drill down into clinging and running, because these are the two probably most go-to things that most people use when they're in victimhood. I think.
Well, I would like to clarify that.
Sure.
In our family.
In our family.
Yeah,
okay.
Because
and I'm
I
from my perspective. From
your perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been our experience.
Yes, it's been from our experience from the people, or I should say, our media family. These are some of the favorite habits that we have. And again, please note that there's no right or wrong. It's being human. And even though it's labeled victimhood, it's just being human. So
yeah,
there's
the reason why we're bringing these up and bringing them to the light, more say, or to your consciousness, is so you can have an understanding from our perspective, explaining it, so you can have different choices and realize, because sometimes we don't even realize that that's what we're doing, because it's very habitual from, gosh, you learn these behaviors from, the time you're born on, and we pick up the behaviors that our parents have, and we usually have the same behaviors, or we do the opposite. So if you have a parent that attacks, like we have, a screamer, rager type of person, we became runners and clingers and to get attention and acting like victims, right? I can remember going to school.
And it's very natural for children for this.
Yeah.
They need to learn these skills to recognize them. So there's, again, no right or wrong in it. And so please understand that we're not in any way saying that anything's right or wrong. These are just being human, and things
we're
that
just
happen.
giving information so you can make different choices if you choose to do so, or at least have just an awareness, or go, nope, not for me, it's all good. It's just stuff that we like to share and talk about. So let's move into this.
Sure. Let's go ahead and start with clinging. We're going to try to stay on track this time.
Okay.
So because we like to talk, if you didn't notice. Anyway, why don't you go ahead and give us a pretty good description of what clinging is and what an example of it is, and we'll just
do
go
we
from
really
there.
need a description for clinging? No, I'm joking. Because clinging, I mean, obviously the word, right, is clinging, and that means that anytime we're trying to get more time, money, praise, gift, love, whatever it is, it's a form of getting from other people. But instead of asking, like, hey, Faye, can you spend some time and just listen to me? That's very hard for people to ask for. They'll go into a behavior, right? And they'll be passive aggressive. And so some of the clinging behaviors that's been identified through the guidelines that I teach through loving groups, facilitating with them, along with my groups and Beautiful Mess and Amour de Soi, is using emotions to control another. I think we've all experienced it or have used it to manipulate. Excessive gratitude to flattery. We just go on and on and on and on and on and on about somebody's amazing, and everybody is amazing, but we're using it in the form of trying to get something from them.
It's a tool of manipulation.
It can be a tool of manipulation, but it also can be a real authentic tool of expressing. So it's always in the intention in which we show up in these behaviors, because all of them can be from a space of unconditional love, or from the space of what we call imitation love. It's really with the intention of why you're doing it, and when you're trying to manipulate somebody, you can't. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, obvious to you. So acting helpless without the other person. I see this a lot with the people that I work with, and they really try to put the responsibility of their happiness in somebody else's lap. And it's very, if you're on the other receiving end of that, can be very exhausting.
Yeah,
So,
if you would only do this
Yeah.
for me, if you'd only, I would,
Yeah.
then be happy.
and that's the
or if you would stop doing this, I would be
yeah,
happy.
and that's
yeah.
acting like a victim in a clinging behavior. And as we stated earlier in the previous podcast, the three mantras that we've identified mostly, there's more, but it comes in the form of look what you did to me, or look what you should have done for me, and it's not my fault. If you've uttered those words, you're probably in the space of victimhood, most likely. Not 100% sure, but usually yes. So, and another one that we see a lot of, and which I'm very guilty of in my own life, is talking on and on to keep attention.
No,
And
not us.
Not
Yes.
us, no. And this is usually attached to what I call the proving game, and that means you're just trying to prove your worth, or that you have worth and people want to spend time with you. So the way you collect evidence for yourself, your brain, is by keeping people's attention, by going on and on about whatever you're talking about. And this is something, now there's a difference where you talk on and on and on, like me facilitating, but I have the permission of the people in front of me and they're wanting that. So that's not a behavior. But if you ask me a simple question like, how are you today, Barb? And I go on for 10 minutes about how I am, and you're just like rolling your eyes and going, how the hell do I get out of this conversation, Grace, with Grace? That would be a form of holding somebody hostage in
Yeah,
this
I've learned
drill.
not to ask people how they are because of that.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of hard not to ask because it's kind of so ingrained in for you to reply that way. But I really try very hard not to ask people how they are unless I really want to sit and listen
Sure.
to how they are, because you
Yeah.
have no idea what's going to come out of their mouth.
No, you
sometimes
don't.
it's one answer, sometimes it's a 15-minute,
Yeah.
yeah, triad going on.
And then
on
we
and
also,
on.
that's an invitation. I mean, I've had this discussion before. I always say, how are you? And people are just programmed to say fine or good.
Yes,
And that's the thing.
not
It's like,
necessarily true.
not
but yeah.
necessarily true, but really, when we're asking people, really, how are you? Do we really want to know? I would say 95% of the time, no.
Yes.
I mean, it's just an ingrained habit that we have in our American culture to ask that question. It's kind of...
So I've learned that if you're going to ask the question, you have to be prepared to receive the answer. Otherwise, don't ask the question.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds kind of harsh, but it's just like, I don't want to waste 10 minutes talking to someone.
I think what it is people don't know how to connect
Yes.
or identify or to acknowledge another person because they're not upset. So, I mean, for me, I would be like, oh, have an amazing day, or,
Yeah.
oh, you look lovely, or something, whatever
Yeah.
catches my eye. And it doesn't really open up. I'm not really asking them a question. I'm just stating, have a lovely day. I'm not ignoring them because you
Yes.
don't want to come across as
No,
being
no,
cold.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I always like good day, good morning.
Yeah.
I will acknowledge the person without a question.
Yeah,
Because
it's
I usually don't
just
wanna
one
know
way to
them.
do it. Doesn't mean you have to. If you love asking people that, amazing, keep doing it. It's your thing. So another thing for clinging is telling people how much we need them, and it's quite the experience. And I mean, when this happens, it's kind of. I mean, the word that pops in my head, at least for me, is scary, because it's usually from a state of so we'll use my dating, because I'm in the midst of trying to date on dating sites, and that's a whole nother podcast. It's amazing to me how the word clingy men are, and I'm sure women, but I'm not dating women, men are, and I'm like professing love to me, just meeting me face to face, or needing me in their life, and I'm like going, I mean, on my side, just so you know, I'm sitting there going, wow, this feels really, really uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
And it is uncomfortable, but I think they're kind of trained, and I'm just guessing here.
Yeah.
But I mean, just from the culture we live in, it's like women want to hear this stuff, so I'm going to tell them what they want to hear,
Sure.
so I can get them on a date. I mean, that's really kind of, because I'm like, well, how could you possibly? And when they're professing their love, they're not really professing love in the sense that we understand love.
Yeah.
They're just and
That's
I
red
would be
flags for
professing-
me. It's
Yeah,
like boom, 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 boom.
it's professing an interest, but wrapping it in the word of love.
Yeah, and I get that, and and I mean, I understand that logically, but to actually experience it, is a whole nother thing.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
to have somebody sitting across from you that you really don't know, you're just meet and greet, right? A coffee date, and then they're just feel the desire or wanting to have that connection with me instead of just being straightforward and asking questions and learning more. They're trying, like you said, give me information they think I want to hear, and then it's just like, I mean, we get into these discussions. I'm going to be on the other side of that question. They're just like, what? Yeah. I don't usually respond like most people. It depends on the person. Sometimes I'm like, thank you, and I get up and leave, and I don't think we're going to be a good match, and I don't go into explanation. Or if depending on my mood, I might be curious and go into a deeper conversation and ask them questions. It's like, oh, really interesting. Why would you say that? Or what makes you, what does that mean to you, right? And they're just like, what? So it's just
I know, because I have like 10 questions, but we can wait for another podcast talking about
yeah.
dating sites, because some of the stories you tell me, I'm like, well, how does this guy even think that's okay? Yeah. So anyway,
it's been a journey of really, really practicing not being in these behaviors and not getting wrapped up in because I'm a praise junkie. So we didn't talk about on this particular podcast. There's 4 reasons that pushes imitation love. It feels like love to us because that's how we've identified it, but that's praise, power, pleasure, and safety. And the 2 big ones for me is praise and safety. So if you start praising me, man, you got my attention, because I love being praised.
Well, who doesn't?
Good. Yeah, it feels good, and I get it, and I love it.
That's not entirely true, because there are a lot of people out there that you give them a compliment and they'll brush it away.
Yeah.
And I really like your explanation of why you should take a compliment with the thank you. It really shifted it for me when we had the conversation where do you know what I'm talking about here?
No, refresh my memory.
Sure. Where you would give me a compliment and say, well, and I go, oh, that's not true. You kind of poo-poo it.
Yeah.
And then I believe that, I think this will pop up in your mind again, or hopefully it was you that told me. It's you're denying giving the gift, refusing the gift from someone else. Yeah. So if you say it much better than I do.
Yeah. So, and I also had to navigate through this, because getting compliments, obviously, when raised up in the household we were, was a form of manipulation for us, and it never felt real. I mean, obviously, as a child, your spirit, you're innocent, you know when it's real and when it's not, and or we want to believe our parents, and then they go into their behaviors. But really, a compliment is when we really talk about unconditional love, and it's really the what's this called, the infinity, right? It looks like a sideways 8, and so we can give, and we're really good at giving. You're a great giver. But when we're not very good at receiving, because we have convinced ourselves that we're not worthy of whatever somebody's giving us a compliment. So when somebody gives you a gift of a compliment, saying, "Wow, you're an amazing person," and you're like, "No, not really. It's not a big deal," is what we're teaching them as we go into duality when we say that, and we're making it turns into, they're wrong and I'm right, and I'm going to prove it to them because I'm not going to agree with them. And over time, what happens is people go, okay, on a subconscious level, where I must be wrong about this person, and you're actually training people to see you in a negative light by not receiving the compliment. So the way I went to it, so I could honor how they see me, and still honor how I feel or whatever comes up for me, is thank you for seeing me in that perspective or in that light, because I'm not owning it wholly if I don't agree with it or I don't want whatever. It doesn't even matter why, but I'm honoring how they see me, and I don't have to take it and own it, because I know who I am, and I don't need your validation but I appreciate the thought and the love and the seeing me that way. It's amazing that you see me that way, and I appreciate it, and I don't have to take it to make me feel better, or if it's a negative thing, make me feel worse.
Yes.
It's like when I have somebody coming at me in a negative sharing, like when they want to give me constructive criticism, my response is usually, wow, that's an interesting story of me. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Is a good one. As long as you're not doing it in a condescending way,
No,
because it's
no.
very easy to take that
Yeah.
phrase and turn it into.
Oh
a
yeah,
very
it's always
condescending-
within the tone that you do it.
Yes.
But if somebody comes back at me and says you're full of baloney,
Yeah,
it's like, well, that's
I don't think they use that word, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. It would be. I'm trying to be clean. I would just like, well, thank you for thank you for sharing your perspective.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean I have to own it. I can take it and use it as information and say, well, is there? Because what I do is then I go, well, is there truth to that? Now I'm not going to do that with that person in front of me because
No.
I'm not going to give them food for thought to come after me. But I was like, is there any truth in that? What can I learn from that? Learn from that. Is there something in there that I can look at? And so
That's
where
being curious.
Just
that
being
we keep
curious
going back
about
to that.
myself.
Yes,
Yeah. And so it's really about the gift of receiving. That's the biggest component that I think. I can't speak for men. From my perspective, it's more women that have a hard time receiving any gifts. And it's not to say that there aren't women that aren't that way, but we tend to label them as being narcissistic or a bitch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not our story to label, but we tend to do that to protect ourselves or make ourselves feel better. Well, she gets so many things. It's like, it's none of our business.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
Just take the gifts that people give you and just simply say thank you for the thought or thank you for seeing me that way. And I promise you, as you do that, you will start hearing, and it will shift your perspective in the sense of receiving. And you actually start hearing people and the intention in which they're giving, and you actually create that connection with them. Because when we deny it, we're keeping our wall up.
I gotcha. Now, I did want to touch upon one word that keeps coming up in different podcasts.
Sure.
And that way people, because, we just assume sometimes that everybody understands
Sure.
the
The
words,
lingo.
the lingo we're using. And that's the word duality. And maybe if you could, maybe we'll try to touch upon it when it does come up in a podcast, but if you could just give a brief explanation of what you are meaning when you say duality, when you're talking about the person, right? Yourself.
Yes, and so duality creates that. We're trying to create a safety or we're trying to create boundaries to keep somebody in or out, right? So duality, right or wrong, black or white. So that means somebody has to do a proving game. So it sticks us right into behavior, because if we're proving ourselves, then we're not being authentically who we are. Right, we're trying to get somebody to like us, or to convince somebody that we're right or that they're wrong, and so it creates that division, that energetic division. Because the way I explain relationships is like Faye's over there, Barb's over here. The space between us is what really is the relationship. So what are we putting into the space between us, the relationship part? So if I'm making you wrong, then I'm putting in a behavior, right? So prove yourself to me. I'm basically saying, hey, Faye, prove yourself to me that you're right, or argue back that I'm right. Or if you're a victim, you're right. Oh, I must be wrong. I was really good at that. You're right. Oh, you must be right about me, and I'm wrong. And I would take on other people's truths of me and make them my truth, even though they weren't my truth, just to keep the peace. I was trying to create safety. So duality is just a form of a wall. It's a wall, in my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not being open to the whole experience.
So what as an individual are you striving for? If you're not wanting to be in a duality, then what is the word that you use for the wholeness of a relationship?
You say I. You take the I statements. So instead of saying
so you take ownership.
You take ownership of who you are.
Okay, and so that kind of completes a wholeness of a whole
Yeah.
you, instead of going, there's a right and a wrong, or black and white.
No, because
and,
I'm wholly me,
Yeah.
you're wholly you, meaning wholly like a
Yeah.
whole person.
Mm.
And like I said earlier, it's the space between us, is what we bring to it.
Mm.
And if you bring your walls, we're going to have walls. And it doesn't matter if I'm whole and you're not. I mean, I'm still going to bump up against it. It's my choice to whether or not to keep working or not working. I don't like the word, to keep connecting with you, to see if we can work around the walls, or just see what's going on. A healthy relationship with anybody, with an intimate partner, friends, family, is two people coming together, right? And having the willingness to work together on whatever blocks or behavior, or whatever you want to call it, the dualities, right? And there's nothing wrong with owning owning whatever you believe. It's when we try to convince other people that they're wrong in their beliefs and trying to get them to come. Now, can you have some good conversations and give them information where they can shift their belief structure? Absolutely. But your intent isn't to go in there and beat them down until they agree with you. You're just like, hey, this is my perspective. What's yours? Oh, that's cool. And you guys share information, and then you take that information and then you get to process it and form whatever belief you want around it.
Yeah, so it's basically, don't go into a relationship like, you either agree with me, and if you don't agree with me, we're not going to have a relationship, because my way is the right way would be you know,
my favorite is the my way or the highway. I think I heard that so much, and so it really, like, which really taught me that if I didn't do what other people wanted, then I wasn't wanted. I mean, that's what I got from that being said to me over and over and over again.
And I do want to just, you know, kind of plug in here that we're talking about adult relationships and not necessarily the parent-child relationship. And even the parent-child relationship you have with yourself, with the inner child, that's a whole another discussion.
Yes.
But really, this is really, we're talking about adult relationships, because it really does, relationships when you're with your children are vastly different than what we're talking about. There's different components within that.
Yeah, because you're not, the child obviously is not at the same capacity you are to make decisions. Your job as a parent is to give them information and to give them structured choices.
This is true. And so I just wanted to plug that in there, because I don't want everyone, or at least, you know, go, oh, I can apply this to any relationship, because, I mean,
we're talking about two adults.
Yeah, we're talking about two, I mean, not that you can't use these skills within and these are part of the skills, but you would come at it at a different way versus with you would interact with a child differently than you would with an
so we're
adult.
talking about children, I would say, like under the age of 12.
Yes.
Because some of this stuff is, we can really teach our children these behavior, I mean, how to identify, how to take ownership of their choices, and that's a really good time. I mean, if you can teach them, the younger the better. You can teach them all the way down from 3 years old and on up.
Yes,
you just do it in levels. But when children usually get to the age about 15 or 16, I mean,
they're pretty much
we all know how teenagers are. So we're not going to go into that
there's
discussion.
a lot of this.
There's a lot of this going on, but it also helps you see your child, if it's something you're learning new, your teenage child, in a new light, and maybe to see that, well, what are they afraid of? Why are they showing up? Why are they lying? Why are they attacking? Why are they acting like a victim if you have a sulky, teenage girl? Why are they clinging to their boyfriend and girlfriend?
Why won't they talk to me?
Why won't they talk to me?
I think we'll do a podcast on different skills for communication.
Yes,
just simple ones that really work, and especially with teenagers on up, and that way you don't get into this push-pull conversation and be able to get past that.
Well, you're really teaching them how to be emotionally mature and responsible for their choices. And if you can practice this with your kids from the time they can speak on up, their life is going to be so much richer at a very much younger age. So they don't have to be in our age group trying to learn this stuff and going through so much pain before you actually go, okay, there has to be a different way to do this.
Okay, I want to go ahead, because we're got a few more moments there, and we still need to cover running.
I know, right?
I know we keep doing this. Okay, and so won't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what running is, because I say a lot of things on this list that definitely are me or have been me at some point in my life.
Sure. So I'll just read the definition quickly, and that's running. So it's one effective way to diminish our pain. Our pain is simply to withdraw from it. So we are running when we physically leave or avoid difficult situations or relationships. So we emotionally withdraw from interactions or relationships, to bury ourselves in our work, our hobbies, or use alcohol or drugs to alter our moods, and it's a form of protecting.
And I would include food on that as well.
Food, sex, any type of addiction.
Any kind of addiction. It's just not those two things.
No, they use that as an example. But protecting is a form of hiding from the world, basically, right?
No, and we have a list here of different forms of running, and the one that always pops out at me, because I was so very guilty of this, especially as a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, some of it, I know teenagers sleep a lot anyway. Yeah. That's just a normal part of growing up and the body changing.
Yeah.
But I was excessively oversleeping, and that's what it is, oversleeping. And it's still my favorite. I used to list it as my favorite hobby was sleeping. I mean, seriously, people would ask me what my hobby was, and I'd be sleeping.
Yeah.
It's just a form of running.
Yeah.
And it's a nice way to escape.
It's just an
reality.
indication. Really,
Yeah.
I mean, at the time when you said that, that's just an indication of the pain you were in.
Yes.
You didn't know how to process it except to sleep through it.
Yes.
So that's how we do that, and that's what all these behaviors are. Is a form of, we don't know how to process it, so we show up in our behavior and do the best we can. And I honestly believe people are doing the best they can in the moment. And
Yes,
I
and that's
don't-
all you
yeah,
can do.
and that's all you
And
can
again,
do.
there's no right or wrong. I mean, the other one that I see a lot, especially, I'm going to say in my experience with women, is not speaking. They just
Yeah.
kind of shut down. And
Yeah.
actually, they're kind of doing two running behaviors at the same time. They're disconnecting and they're not speaking. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a double whammy.
Well, they're also, if they have it listed here, not taking responsibility, and they're
Yeah.
trying to punish somebody. I am not going to engage with you, so I'm just going to ignore you.
I'm going to ignore you for the next 3 days
Yeah.
because you did this to me, so now I need to do this to you to make it even
I
or
was
whatever
never
it is.
able to master that particular
Yeah.
running skill
Yeah.
because I'm a talker, but I do know people who use this as a form of punishment with their significant others, their friends, and family. And I am boggled by that particular one because I'm like going, how can you go that long with? I mean, I guess if you don't live with them, it might be easier. But if you're living with somebody, I don't know how you could. I mean, personally, I couldn't do it.
I've definitely never done that, shut people out because I'm like you, I'm a talker.
Yeah.
But I've had people do it to me.
Sure.
But I and it's funny because for me it's like, okay, well, when you're ready, and I just kind of let it go. I mean, I get it.
So yeah,
You know,
you
there's
have moments.
different-
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
I
just
know.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's
Yeah.
just it's surprising to us. Like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't know if I should admire that or not.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's very cool. But yeah, so all these behaviors, like once again, I want to make it very clear that there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the gift.
It's
I
being
look at
human.
it as being human. And it's the gift of seeing yourself and making different choices. So if you know you're not speaking to somebody, you can ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What am I wanting? How can I ask for what I want without, not speaking? Because eventually you're going to speak and you get to that, and that's what pushes you. You finally, on a subconscious level, kind of walk through those questions. You either ignore it and just let it fall away, or you address it in a more direct, adult way and have an adult conversation around it. So it's really practicing how to be emotionally mature, which means being, adult about it. And we're scared to be adults sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end there. I'll just say thanks, Barb, for sharing. And I think we're done for today. So peace out.